What's up, skaters? Nick's Tricks coming at you with a product review on the Phlebo Flatline frame walls for the 50/50 Prime core. Let's go take these to Union City Park and do a little test skate on them and see how many tricks we can get, and then we'll come back and talk about them. All right, we're back to talk about my experience so far with the Phlebo Flatline frame walls. I've been skating these in some iteration for about the last 6 months. The session that you just saw was a good test of them on round rail, on square ledge, on mini ramp, and kind of just like a rolling around speed test overall. Let's go back in time and see kind of my history with the 50/50 Prime system. I started on the Farmer walls and Farmer cores. These had 58 flat and were an amazing frame, pretty broken in, pretty grooved in the couple months I skated them. And then I was interested in what was on the 3D printed market. At the time, Phlebo Corp had just started up, and I asked Matt if he could print in orange PLA. He said yes. I asked if these could take 60 flat, and he said, I'm working on it. And so we worked together. He sent me this frame wall to try out, and with a little modification, I was able to get the wheel well in and skate 60 flat on these. I skated this pair for 3 months, and then I eventually did have an issue where, due to over tightening and honestly skating street ledges on these, I did have this one axle crack through. And then again, messaged Matt, was talking to Matt, and skated these probably for another month or so, broken like this while we were talking. He beefed up the design on the print and worked on the wheel well modifications as well, and then sent me the pair that I currently ride and have been riding probably for about 4 months now. You can see they're pretty well broken in. This is my sole side, and that is definitely the most broken in. You can see the bumps that you normally would have here. Kind of classic 50/50 nubs are worn too flat here for me, and there's a little bit of wear starting in the first axle there on my sole side. Really well broken in groove. The wheel well protection, again, this was modified. The current version of it has perfect wheel wells built in. My non-sole sides are not nearly as worn in, and there's no axle wear on those sides either. But really, really well grooved in. This frame actually gets me to one of my first points about 3D printed walls. In general, my experience with both of these 3D printed walls is they do seem to groove in faster. I have not shied away from skating these on rough terrain. Some people say you shouldn't skate 3D printed walls on rough street ledges. That has not been my experience with these. I have a curb in my driveway that I skate and usually use that to kind of front side royale groove in my frames from the jump. And these, you'll notice like little plastic peelings. I think other frames kind of do this, but with PLA, it's kind of pretty quick to peel off a few layers and to start grooving in really quick, which is not something I mind at all. I like grooving in my frames. I like the way they feel once they're grooved in, and for that process to happen quicker at the beginning of a sesh than having to kind of take them to a curb and grind them or really work them down over a few sessions. I much prefer that. And then I've noticed that once they hit a certain point, you can tell these are kind of slick. They wear down just like a normal frame once they kind of get to that like core of the PLA that is the H block. So now I'm not worried about them wearing down too quick. You know, they kind of have hit that perfect balance of being a really well grooved in frame with a lot of life left in them. I don't really have intentions on stopping skating these. There's a couple competitions coming up and I'm hoping for these to be kind of my go-to frame and frame wall for things coming up. I like them that much. So you'll notice in the session I did a royale. That's not a trick that I commonly do. I am not a big groove trick person, but for the sake of testing these walls, I wanted to do some boot down groove tricks on flat 90-degree coping to see how these performed, and I didn't have any wheel bite issues at all. The top of the ledge is waxed pretty well there, but I didn't have any wheel bite, any wheel squeak at all. And in my experience riding these, the only time I've really hit that is kind of improper foot placement on a sole, or when I'm like wanting to 180 off of a sole and kind of turn my foot and the top wheel hits the top of the ledge. I will have some squeak there, but the wheel bite protection on these, like once I'm in the groove, I'm in the groove, and it's nice that for the channel, like the channels are small enough that I don't end up in channel lock or kind of missing and hitting between the wheel and the wheel well. I've had that with some frames too. This, when you're in the groove and locked. When you're laid down, once you're really grooved in, it's just a really nice, secure feeling. And for round rails especially, I've found these perform just so well. I love doing switch ups, and I mentioned these kind of lock in really well, but not so much like the Celtic V1 flat frame is one of my other favorite frames, and sometimes that almost feels like too locked in on round rail, and sometimes on mini ramp it almost feels like it's pinching the coping and not sliding. These have a really nice width where you feel secure in your groove. You're not sliding around in the groove, but you're not pinching the coping or too close to a wheel. It's really just this perfect balance of a well-designed, well-covered wheel well. That's gonna do it for this review of the Phlebo Flatline frame. Make sure to follow the links in the description and pick up some Phlebo products for yourself, whether that's the buffer, flatline walls, the Fuchs, or the faux rockers. They really have a lot to pick from no matter what type of skater you are. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out my Instagram at nix.tricks for all the skate clips and kendama clips and whatever else I do there. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.